Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Robots vs. Vampires podcast. I'm Adrian Smith, and I'm here with the fantastic Julia Jones.
Hey, Adrian.
Julia, today we've got a story that's a little bit different. It's vampires,
Okay.
but with like a climate change twist.
Oh,
You ever think about like how a warming planet would affect creatures of the night?
it is a really wild concept.
Yeah,
This story really digs into that. It flips the script on the classic vampire tropes. Like, we're so used to seeing them as these powerful, almost invisible beings, right?
right.
But here they're facing an existential threat from something they can't control. A rapidly heating world.
Yeah, just imagine like those scorching summers
Yeah.
getting even hotter,
Yeah.
basically turning up the heat on their already sun-sensitive existence.
Really makes you wonder, what would a vampire do in that kind of situation? Would they retreat further into the shadows? Adapt? Or maybe fight back?
Well, that's exactly what our protagonist Elsa decides to do. She's not your typical angsty vampire moping around in the castle.
Very-
She's got this unique ability. She can control ice, and she's determined to use it to figure out what is going on.
Elsa's ice powers are crucial to the story. They not only allow her to shield herself from sunlight, but they also represent a break from traditional vampire lore. You know, we often associate vampires with fire and darkness, but here we have a vampire wielding the power of ice and cold.
Oh, wow.
It's a refreshing twist.
Unintended. But she's not just sitting around, letting the world burn. She's actively researching, digging into the cause of this extreme heat like a vampire scientist.
This is where the story gets really interesting. We see Elsa challenging the status quo. The elder vampires are content with their traditional ways,
Right.
dismissing the warming as some kind of mystical curse. But Elsa isn't satisfied with those explanations. She's driven to understand the scientific reasons behind it.
And that leads her to a shocking discovery. The warming isn't some supernatural phenomenon, it's pollution. Humans have built these massive factories that are spewing toxins into the atmosphere, causing the planet to heat up.
And this is where the story starts to challenge those traditional power dynamics
Right.
between humans and vampires. Usually vampires are seen as the predators,
Right.
but in this narrative, it's the humans who are unknowingly threatening the very existence of vampires through their actions.
So Elsa decides to infiltrate one of these factories,
Okay.
thinking she'll find more evidence of human negligence. But what she stumbles upon is far more sinister and unsettling.
Oh.
It's like she's peeling back layers of a conspiracy.
Mhm.
At first, it's just pollution.
Right.
But then she discovers these strange pulsating vines growing throughout the factory. They're not natural. They're throbbing with this unnatural purple energy, almost like they're alive. Imagine Elsa's shock. She goes in expecting to find smog and smokestacks, and instead she finds this bizarre, almost alien-looking vegetation taking over the factory.
It's a total game changer.
Yeah.
This isn't just about humans carelessly polluting the planet. It's just more deliberate manipulation of the environment. And that raises a whole new set of questions.
Yeah.
Who's behind this? What's their goal?
And what are these vines? I mean, they're obviously not your typical garden variety.
Exactly. They're like something out of a sci-fi horror movie. And just when Elsa gets close to uncovering more about them, the alarm goes off. She's forced to flee, barely escaping with her life.
But it's a close call, and she doesn't get away unscathed.
Oh.
One of the vines grazes her arm, leaving behind this burning pain, and get this, a spreading purple corruption on her skin.
This is a pivotal moment in the story. This corruption isn't just a physical injury, it's a symbol of this insidious threat that Elsa has stumbled upon.
Right. It's like the enemy has marked her, infected her with something unknown and dangerous. And now she's racing against time to figure out what it is and how to stop it before it's too late.
And the worst part, the other vampires, those stuck in their ways elders, they just see it as a sign of weakness. They urge her to retreat, to hide.
Well, I don't get it, do they? Elsa's not the type to just sit back and accept her fate.
Exactly. Instead of giving in, she sees this corruption as a clue. She knows these vines weren't just meant to choke out life. They were designed to transform it, to reshape the world into something inhospitable for vampires.
It's like they were targeted.
Precisely. And this realization pushes Elsa to take a drastic step. She decides to reach out to the one group who might understand what's going on, a human environmental group that's been protesting the factories, claiming something unnatural is happening.
Talk about a risky move. Here she is, a vampire, reaching out to humans for help.
It shows how desperate she is. She's willing to risk everything to find answers to understand this threat, and it also highlights her resourcefulness. She's not just a creature of the night lurking in the shadows. She's using technology, the internet, to connect with the outside world and seek allies in unexpected places.
So she sends them a message explaining everything she's discovered. hoping they'll believe her.
And after a few agonizing days, she gets a reply. Meet me. Tomorrow. Pier 13. Midnight.
Oh.
It's a classic clandestine meeting set up shrouded in mystery.
You can practically smell the fog and salt water, right? And we, the listeners, are left hanging, wondering who she's going to meet and what dangers might await her.
That's the beauty of a good cliffhanger, Adrian. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, desperate to know what happens next. And trust me, you won't want to miss what unfolds in part 2.
Expert speaker.
Welcome back to the Robots vs. Vampires podcast. We're picking up right where we left off with Elsa heading to a midnight rendezvous at Pier 13.
You know, it's funny. We usually think of vampires like as being in control, lurking in the shadows, pulling the strings.
Right.
But here, Elsa is completely out of her element. She's walking into a situation blind, trusting humans of all beings.
It really does highlight her desperation, Adrian. She's exhausted all her usual options. The elder vampires are no help. And she's infected with this strange corruption, reaching out to humans. Even ones who might be sympathetic to environmental causes. It's a huge risk.
So picture this. Elsa, shrouded in darkness, arrives at the pier. Fog is rolling in the wood, is creaking under her feet. And instead of some, granola-crunching activist, she finds
A man in a perfectly tailored suit. He's calm, collected, and he's not surprised to see her. It's clear that he knew she was coming, that this whole meeting was orchestrated.
And here's where it gets really creepy.
Okay.
He starts talking. And it's not about saving the environment or fighting pollution. He drops a bombshell. The humans have known about the vampires for centuries.
Wow.
The pollution, the factories, the vines, it was all intentional.
This completely changes the power dynamic, Adrian. It turns the classic vampire story on its head. Humans aren't just cattle anymore.
Right.
They're playing a long game, manipulating the environment to suit their needs. And vampires are just collateral damage.
It's almost like a corporate takeover, but on a global scale. They saw the vampires as a threat and decided to deal with it in the most underhanded way possible.
What's fascinating to me is the level of planning and secrecy involved. This wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment decision. They methodically researched vampires, understood their weaknesses, and developed a strategy to exploit them. It really speaks to human ingenuity and maybe our capacity for ruthlessness.
And the corruption, that purple stuff spreading through Elsa, turns out it wasn't an accident. It was engineered.
Uh-oh.
The vines were designed to weaken vampires, make them more susceptible to, whatever the humans have planned.
It's a terrifying thought, Adrian. Imagine being targeted by a weapon you can't even see, slowly chipping away at your strength, your very essence.
And this suited guy, he's smug. He thinks he has Elsa trapped, weakened, ready to be captured or worse. He even whips out this canister filled with some kind of anti-ice gas. I mean, talk about being prepared.
It highlights their arrogance, doesn't it? They underestimated Elsa, her resourcefulness, her ability to adapt, and most importantly, they underestimated the power of the corruption itself.
So the anti-ice gas starts to work up. Elsa's powers are flickering. But she notices something strange, the corruption, that purple energy inside her. It's reacting to her fear. Her anger is growing stronger, feeding off of her emotions.
It's a classic horror trope, but with a twist. The poison meant to weaken her is becoming a source of power, a dark pact formed in the face of extinction.
And you know Elsa, she's not one to back down in a desperate gamble. She channels that corrupted energy, pushing it outwards, mixing it with her ice powers, and what happens next is, it's both beautiful and terrifying.
The scene is described as this explosion of icy tendrils, but they're not the pure white we associate with Elsa. They're laced with that pulsating purple twisting and writhing with an unnatural energy. It's a visual representation of her transformation, a fusion of her innate power and this corrupting force.
The suited guy, he's totally caught off guard. One minute he's gloating, the next he's screaming as those icy vines wrap around him, freezing him from the inside out.
It's a gruesome victory, Adrian. He becomes this macabre statue, his face frozen in a mask of terror. The corruption meant to weaken vampires has become a weapon in Elsa's hands.
And as the sun rises, painting the sky in hues of red and orange, Elsa stands there, victorious but changed. The Ice Queen has risen, but at what cost?
It's a chilling image, Adrian. Elsa's powers are now intertwined with this dark, unpredictable energy. The question is, will she be able to control it? Or will it consume her, turning her into the very thing she fought against?
Welcome back to the Robots vs. Vampires podcast. Man, what a story, right?
Yeah.
We've got Elsa, our ice-wielding vampire, caught in the middle of this crazy human conspiracy to reshape the planet, and now she's got this new corrupted power coursing through her veins. What a mess.
It really makes you think, Adrian, we started with this idea of vampires facing like an environmental threat, but it's become so much more complex.
Right.
We're talking about power dynamics, ethics, the unintended consequences of playing God.
It's like a classic monster movie,
Yeah,
but with a modern, eco-conscious twist.
exactly. And it asks some tough questions.
Yeah.
What happens when the lines between hero and villain get blurred? When the very thing that's supposed to protect you becomes a weapon that could destroy you?
So let's talk about Elsa. She's taken down one of the bad guys, but she's definitely not out of the woods yet. She's stronger, but her powers are different. It's like the ice is tainted now, mixed with that pulsing purple energy.
It makes you wonder about the nature of power itself, doesn't it? Is power something you control, or does it ultimately control you? Elsa might have defeated her enemy, but at what cost? Has she become the very thing she was fighting against?
And what about the bigger picture? Elsa might have won this battle, but the war is far from over. The human conspiracy is still out there, probably cooking up even more ways to control the planet and eliminate anything that gets in their way.
This is where the story leaves us with a lot of uncertainty, which I think is brilliant. Will Elsa use her newfound power to seek revenge, hunting down the people behind the conspiracy? Or will she try to protect her kind, becoming a leader in a world that's becoming increasingly hostile to vampires?
I mean, she's got the power to do either, right? It all comes down to what she chooses to do with it. It's a heavy burden, especially for someone who's already struggling to survive in a changing world.
And that's what makes this story so compelling. It doesn't offer easy answers. It forces us, the listeners, to think about these complex issues, to consider the different paths Elsa could take, and the potential consequences of each choice.
It's like the story is holding up a mirror to our own reality, asking us what we would do in a similar situation. Would we fight back, even if it meant compromising our own values? Would we seek revenge, or would we try to find a way to coexist?
These are questions that resonate with our own lives. Even if we're not facing down a global conspiracy or battling corrupted ice powers.
So listeners, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Scorched Earth, a vampire tale for the modern age. But the conversation doesn't have to end here.
Head over to our social media and tell us what you think. What would you do if you were in Elsa's frosty shoes? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And until next time, keep exploring those fantastical realms of robots and vampires. You never know what chilling truths you might uncover.